Our next guest on Inside Great Minds podcast is Matt Fuhrman. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this episode a lot. Matt is a longtime friend and client of Southwestern Consulting and ours. Matt has been in the staffing arena for pretty much his whole business life, although he's had some time in the Port Authority role, and he graduated from the Maritime Academy. And so this is a guy who has got an amazing life journey from an athlete as a division football player in college to what he's doing in business today in Houston, Texas. Matt is the CEO of Core Group Resources, a staffing and placement and executive search firm that used to be equipping organizations in the maritime arena and in oil and gas, but has since diversified to quite a bit. And he'll explain a little bit about that. But he's got a great journey in terms of how he built his business, his practice, how he got there, and some of his operating principles for leading a team and being really successful as an individual, a father, and both in a work life and spiritual life as well. So you're going to get a whole collection of ideas from Matt. So I'm excited for you to hear from him and in our interview in this episode. So enjoy, and we'll put in some additional details in the show notes. I was like racking my brain to how far back it was that we met. And, Tina and I moved to Houston maybe almost 7 years ago now, 6.5 years ago. And then within the first year, I reconnected with Les, right? And Les and I had coffee, had just an awesome conversation and started working together. And I think it was Les initially that connected us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Les Stretch, yeah.
And the way you knew Les was through CrossFit initially?
It was like, yeah, it was CrossFit. It was interesting because I was at a startup CrossFit gym that was like, there's like only 8 people there. And then Les like brought his posse in and then he had like his whole crew from Katy that was like a part of this startup church called Bayou City.
Oh yeah.
And it was really interesting because he airdropped in, his whole network started to wrap in, and all of a sudden, like this startup church, like energy entered a CrossFit gym, and it just exploded. It went up to like 400 people or something. Yeah, it was awesome, and that's where I met him, and then ended up going to church with them, and spent life with them for a long time until they moved out, and we stay in touch. Probably talk every other month, something like that. Just to catch up, but yeah, he kind of went on conquest there for a little while.
Oh, that's crazy. That was Tate Stewart's gym. Yeah. Is that
it was Tate Stewart's gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tate's crew. Yeah. So that's how Tate ended up getting siphoned into Thrive, and a couple people got pulled out of there. And so, yeah, it was an interesting model. I mean, you launch a church and a CrossFit gym simultaneously, and it was like this like rapid like community accelerator. It was incredible experience,
That's pretty cool.
You can't write. Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, so that means that we probably met now almost 5 years ago, and you were, gosh, even 5 years ago, how long had you already been doing Core Group Resources? Like you founded Core Group
2012, so I was probably
5 years in.
I was probably three years underway by the time. Yeah.
Wow.
No formal sales training, all just kind of winging it and figuring it out. And then, when I met you guys, I'm like, well, there is order to this, there is order to this chaos.
Well, there was the initial conversation was so great because I remember Les was like, you will love this guy, Matt, and I was like, okay, great. Like, what inspires you? Because Les doesn't just like say that about everybody, right? He's like, but you're gonna love Matt. Like he like has the intensity and the energy. Like he loves the sales psychology and everything. Like he just embodies that. And I was like, all right, cool. He didn't like prepare me for anything else. And then like the introduction, the meeting there when we like shook hands, and I was like, oh, he does have a lot of great energy. This is great. And then your formal introduction to me to the team, because we decided to do that training together, was you're like, Adam is going to equip you. I mean, it was just like, you were like just radiating like energy. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like Matt is just like, you got so much energy. It was, we had such a fun time doing that workshop. I was like, yeah, me and Matt are going to be good friends, you know? And then, you know, the katana video and image would come out later. And I was like, oh, he likes battle swords as well. This is fantastic. So anyway, we just connected.
Yeah. Well, when you went through your, you know, like, like, yeah, I was like, yeah, like
yeah, we both like hand motions.
Yeah. Hey, again, is repetition. I was like, yes. Yeah. I was like, this is awesome. This is like everything we need. You know, I thought everyone was born into sales. I didn't know you actually had to coach it, you know, until you start a business and you're like, wait a second, you know, you got to coach sales. So yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun knowing you. And yeah, energy, you've got the energy of an opera child, you know, like that, like radiant, you know, projectionist. And I get drawn right into that, you know.
Well, I couldn't wait to have you on here. I think partly because of that energy. I mean, you marry entertainment and value, and that is anytime the perfect guest to have for a podcast is someone who can both be entertaining and educational at the same time. And I think your stories is really cool. And so I think you know, the goal of what we've been doing is trying to diversify and really dive into so many different industries and hear from different business owners across the board, because the perspective is different. But largely, I think what we'll find, and you know, we're, you know, pretty fresh into this, is that a lot of the principles will probably line up to be similar, right? No matter the industry,
right.
what makes a business successful. But anyway, I wanted people to get some context to like who you are in your story. So Core Group Resources is a staffing and placement. Did I get that right? Or is there a different word that I should use?
We call ourselves like recruitment consultants, but we do staffing, placement, recruitment, executive search, you know, the identification of people to place inside of businesses is our main business function. Yeah.
Right. And in this space, there's two sides of relationship building. And so you're so well suited for this, because you're really always engaging with people, right, in this position and in this kind of industry model, because you're either working with the companies as a consultant to help educate them on hiring practices and then help find those key people that they need for their company. And then on the other side, you're trying to find that talent, like you're balancing the boat of both of those relationships, right? Or am I off?
Yeah, it's a three-headed sales monster. So yeah, we're calling into companies, presenting our services, and then selling that company to candidates, and then selling candidates back into companies. So yeah, it's a dual pronged sales approach. Our product is the people we deliver, and so you know, anytime you're moving people, they have there's a lot of complexity to transitioning someone in a job. You know, and it's a deeper relationship dive than most sales. I'd say probably all sales, honestly. You know, I don't know of any other further emotional dive you have to do in career transition. So yeah, it's definitely two sides to that.
And you have a really interesting niche that you started with, right? And maybe I might get this wrong, but you had energy, but you had maritime services. And if I remember right, maritime, like for you, goes way back. Like, and this is what I feel like was part of the pathway that led you to this, and your passion for serving that group especially. Now, I know you guys have broadened your scope, but because you got started in a maritime academy, right?
Yeah. I went to the United States Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, New York. You know, licensed mariner by trade. You know, shipping, port terminal. You know, logistics is kind of my trade specialty degree. And then I got into recruitment in that space, and, you know, have been kind of leveraging that background ever since.
Yeah. So how the heck, and this is something I don't know that I've ever asked you, but like you're growing up, like what caused you to, like, I didn't even know that maritime academies existed in my world, right? Like you actually opened my eyes to this whole world. And then I start meeting people, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. They're tugboat captains. Like there's like all these people that have to be professionally trained. These are serious roles that that are also really actually high income roles and port authorities and like all this whole different industry. And I guarantee you so many of these listeners have like just no clue that this whole, ecosystem exists. So you're in high school. How does this even connect? Like that you want to do this or go down this road?
I had actually a girlfriend in high school's brother went to the Air Force Academy.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting time because, you could go to school for free. You can play sports there. You get like all this education, all this training. It's like overage of training. And then you have all these options on the back end. And so I looked at the Air Force Academy, Kings Point, Naval Academy, U.S. Coast Guard. And I ended up getting to the Air Force Academy and I got into Kings Point. And, it was a lesser known, but I don't know, it was the allure of the waterfront and the merchant ship exchange, I think, just seemed like opportunity to me, not knowing what that really looked like. And so it was an opportunity to play football there. And, I'm like, I can continue my football career and just go so really, honestly, it was a gut check and kind of a faith pass and following the football and then kind of just figuring it out on the other side.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any real strategy outside of just following a football in there. Then it's like, wait, what's all this ship stuff? And then you got to go sail around the world and, and learn like marine engineering and, celestial navigation, navigating by the stars and all kinds of stuff that, normal colleges didn't provide. So it was a super interesting time.
That sounds like a really good pickup line. I can navigate us through the stars. Celestial navigation.
Yeah. I am trained in celestial navigation. I'm a star navigator.
I'm a star navigator. That's your response. I can only imagine you in high school. Goodness. So your football kind of is a big added value to how you're making decisions. So you sit down, and I'm just imagining this. Like, I don't know, the family you grew up with, but like you go, hey, mom, dad, I don't know if you've ever heard of this Merchant Marines thing, but I'm going to do that instead of the Air Force Academy, and I'm going to go play football. And they're like, cool, great, that's awesome. Or were they more like, what?
Yeah, well, it was my dad's dream as an airline pilot to go to the Air Force Academy. So putting that letter in the mail was of decline was that was a major, decision, for my family's sake. So, I mean, it was hard for him. He couldn't send the letters. My mom did, but I'm like, I'm heading down this maritime tunnel and just followed kind of the gut and went,
Are you naturally a rebel in life? or do you just...
Someone called me the other day, like, you're rogue.
There you go.
They called me like rogue. Yeah. Well, I just, it's, you follow your gut, so the world tells you where you should go, what's proper, what you should do. And then you have this underlying conviction of what does kind of God want me to do? What is my plan? And that manifestation of destiny. And it's an inexact science of feeling led. And so you just have to really trust that and feel led and go with that. And it's a really hard thing to kind of teach, but it is something that if you do kind of follow that, you're going to end up on, the path that, really I think was kind of predestined for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's such good, it's hard. I mean, I can only imagine it's imaginably hard to tell your parents anything that's opposite of what they want. I mean, there's a little rebel maybe in all of us, but like, yeah, I mean, with that attachment that he had for you to still, in spite of all that, like say, hey, this is what my gut's telling me and follow that. That's, that's tough for a lot of people. So that, I mean, it does say something about your ability to just make your own decisions in life if that's what you were doing as a junior or senior in high school, right? Because that's probably when you committed at that point, especially with athletics. Or did you commit when you were a sophomore? I mean, it must have been early, right?
It was probably, junior year. Yeah.
So, okay, so you go maritime. Was it like at all what you expected, or was it like, whoa, I was not even prepared that this is how crazy it would be?
Yeah, so we go in there, to give you an idea, our class started with 300 and we ended with 150. So it was a proverbial pruning kind of process going through there. They throw 4 years of work in 3 years. They throw a year's worth of work at you. Like, imagine a college kid, someone hands you a binder, say, here's a year's worth of work, and we're going to send you on a merchant ship with a bunch of old salty mariners. Get the work done, stay alive, and we'll see you on the other side. You know, so it creates this kind of like, you have to figure stuff out on your own. I'd say the school, because the attrition rate's so high, it forces you to become like a rapid resourcer. Like, you know, when your back's against the wall, you got to figure things out. You have to really consume a lot of information to get to the right answer. I'd say that's one of probably the best things about the academy was the ability to survive through rapid resourcing and being like just creative on getting through stuff, you know.
Does it create that same kind of brotherhood that you see in a lot? Like, I feel like here's the other experience I've had. I've come to some of the conferences, and you're really tight with anybody that graduates out of the Maritime Academies. I feel like any of them, like Oneonta, Kings. I mean, you feel like you know everybody in Maritime. I mean, that's part of your job. But I remember going to something, and I just feel like it was like almost fraternal in nature, like these group of guys and gals that go through this process, and that you just like immediately pick it up. I mean, is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, it's a family. You know, it's definitely it's a lifetime family, because you travel through a crucible, you sacrifice your college experience, and then you spend the rest of your life trying to recoup what was lost in the college experience. And so that like creates this brotherhood and sisterhood that we kind of carry through the rest of our lives. Yeah. So it is and I think sailing on ships too, you know, you think about it, you know, if you're, you know, we're all in quarantine right now in our house, and I was kind of laughing the other day. I'm like, you know, when you're on a ship, you're essentially in quarantine, you know, and so people who go through that process, you know, it's just, that also creates another alumni layer to it as well.
And I think anytime you go through enough misery with another person, which there's got to be some good misery in there, that's the glue, right? Because it's the memory of just like how horrible something was, and then like 5 years later you reflect on it and you're like, yeah, it's like the best memories because it was so hard, right?
Right. Yeah. That's it. It's kind of, suffrage creates bonding. You know, you bleed together on a football field, you take no's in a sales environment, you get beat up. I mean, it binds groups of people together, and you know, and it does create that camaraderie and that brotherhood.
And I'm always interested in, you know, trying to isolate principles, because I think we always talk about how what differentiates someone who might accomplish more of their vision in life from those that fail to do that. It has a lot to do with how they make decisions and their thinking. And Tina and I took our little vacation right before the world apocalypse happened, or while it was happening, and we were worried we were going to get stuck in Mexico. This was like last week, week before last. And we were reading, you know, it's our time to read books. And I was reading Grit by Angela Duckworth. I don't know if you've picked that up, but I've
heard of it.
Yeah, she's actually done a lot of, I believe, and I might be misquoting this, but I think she did a lot of the assessments for West Point to try and figure out, like the studies to figure out what causes people to quit. Because they were having, for the longest time, so many people bail, and they were trying to figure out, and the people they were placing bets were going to be the best ended up being the people that actually quit. And so she did some kind of like treadmill test with people where they just put people on a treadmill, and compared to whatever their body weight and general health was, they had kind of a limiter for time and how long they would stay on. And the correlation between the people that would push themselves above what their body weight said they should, like that stayed on there longer than most and like really fought for it, was a better indicator of someone not quitting West Point than all of these assessments and things that they try and put kids through before they'd bring them on. I thought it was so interesting. It was just, that's what they call grit, is the ability to push through the tough stuff. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, why didn't you quit? Like what was going through your head when you're going through some of these like just insane trials at the Maritime Academy that obviously causes 2/3 of people to just say, hey, even though I've invested all this time, it's not worth it?
I think growing up as like a wrestler, football player, the coaching I got as a kid just to be tough and to power through and to hold to the vision of the future. I feel like if you know what your future vision is, if you look and you say, okay, I want a house, with a nice family and a good job, a great career, and you hold to that vision. And then any micro decision that gets in the way of that vision, you just reject, because it's not on that linear path towards what you envision the future to be. And so when you're in the academy and you're like, this is awful, if you get caught up in like the present or in just kind of like, just the toughness of it, you'll get taken out. But if you can hold your vision of what your future looks like your true future, I remember being a kid and seeing this young couple come out of a house. They had a bunch of kids, and I looked at them, and I was on a run through my neighborhood, and it was a nice house, and they seemed way younger to be in a house that big. And I'm like, that's what I want my future to look like. Mm-hmm. And so that vision was like encapsulated off. So every decision I made, if it was, to do drugs or not, or do I stay at this party that long, or does it seem like it's getting out of control, it always went or countered against what that future vision of what I saw for myself and what kind of God had placed in my heart. So you just micro decisions in the present. I mean, we're a compilation of our decisions. And so every little decision, if it was going to dislodge me or knock me off of that like end goal, I just wouldn't do it. And so even going to the academy, put yourself through something terrible, you just hold to that vision, of what your future is going to manifest itself to be. And you just don't deviate from that. And part of that's just powering through stuff,
Wow. It's so funny that like such a little memory, like you're just running through a neighborhood. Like you're not like, hey, I'm going to go seek out my vision right now. You're running through a neighborhood and it's just a house and a young couple. It's nothing like your dad said. It's nothing that like mom sat down and had. It was like what's etched into your memory, 30 years later, is this house and this family that went, I like, that's going to get me through some of the worst times of my life because I'm after that vision.
Yeah. You saw it and you're like, yeah, that's what I want. And then you just cleaved. And so, talking about principles is, you have this vision of what your future is going to be. And then you hold that true, you hold that vision true. And then every decision you make is in alignment with that future, and you don't get taken out along the way, and it's pretty cool. Like you said, 30 years later, I'm in a nice house. I've got 4 kids, own a company, and it's just holding to the vision of what you originally saw yourself to be. And you just don't come off that, and you hold that. So yeah, that's cool. It's interesting. It's those little micro windows that are opened, in your life where you see something, you're like, yeah, I want to project that in my own life. If it's through church, if it's through business, if it's through coaches, if it's through just that random neighborhood experience. I mean, yeah, it's just, we all have a picture of what we want our future to be. It's in our mind. It's ingrained in there, and you just hold to that vision and you don't come off it. Someone wants you to go smoke marijuana and take you out. It's like, well, how does marijuana get me on the course to getting into a big house with a huge family? And right. And it's like, it doesn't really, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3. It doesn't calculate. So let's just take that out, because that's something that's going to slow me down.
So it's your 3rd year. Like, when do you have to actually make the decision as to what the heck you're going to do with this training after you graduate? Because I mean, my understanding, I think we did talk about this over dinner or something one time, where you said, yeah, you leave maritime, you're either at Port Authority type capacity, you're on a boat at sea for 5 years, never seeing it. So I don't know. I mean, there's these long, giant boat captains. That's kind of the progression of leadership in that arena. I mean, there's these different courses that you can take. So what were the things that you were honestly like, hey, okay, I've got this picture of what I want my family and my home to look like. What's the job? When did that start coming together for you? Or were you even like, hey, I don't care what it is. I just, I want to do something that's going to land me that picture.
It was just constant diversification. So you're making a decision to go to an academy. Okay, now you licensed mariner by trade. I'm a naval officer. I can go into any branch in the military. It's just constant diversification and odd stacking in your favor. So when you odd stack yourself, which is like, all right, I can go party at UGA for 4 years and get a business degree and go work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, right? Which is nothing wrong with that, but that's just a narrow tunnel that everyone was kind of traveling down at the time. Or I can just take this window and diversify myself. So constant diversification professionally, from a trade skill perspective, all that. And so you get out of school and you're like, now what? I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of plan, honestly. I got out and it's like, you can go sail on ships, you can go work at ports. And I randomly interviewed for a job and got it within a week to go work in the port of Miami. And again, it wasn't like I did a lot of research. I just saw a window and I took it. There's someone asked me, hey, do you want to go live in Miami Beach and work at the port of Miami? I'm like, that sounds pretty nice. So I'm going to go do it. And then you show up there and you start to realize what you don't want, you're fresh out of school. I still think I'm going to be an NFL football player at the time. So that vision's still carrying. I went and started training at the combine training camps and ended up getting like a NFL scout sponsorship to the University of Miami Combine in 2006. And I had every NFL scout timing me on a 40-yard dash and didn't get a call back. And so I let that book close because I had this vision of myself as this football player that, would just deplete people. And when that vision closed, then I had to kind of like really start to figure out, well, what, I'm in the maritime industry, but I don't really know, I always saw myself as this football player, and that was my identity. And that identity suddenly is gone. What do you do in identity redirection? And a buddy of mine reached out. He said there was this big conference, Catalyst conference in Atlanta. And he's like, hey, Jeff Foxworthy, is going to be up, but they're looking for an opening act. I know you beatbox, would you want to do that? And I said, yeah. So I sent them a video clip and they actually invited me up. And so I went up and did some beatboxing as an opener for Jeff Foxworthy in front of like 10,000 pastors or whatever.
Wait,
and
introed Jeff Foxworthy in front of a bunch of pastors? That's the craziest.
Pastors.
What?
yeah. But anyways, through that process, right? I'm going through this process, and this guy Marcus Buckingham did this thing on Strength Finders, and I started to unlock who I was professionally, like my personality, strengths, all the stuff that was never taught to us as kids. And so coming out, there wasn't a whole lot of plan. Honestly, I'd gotten to this point, still this vision of a football player. Suddenly I'm at Maritime, don't even know what I'm doing there, and all of a sudden I have like this full unlocking at this Catalyst conference with the Gallup group and Strength Finders. And I'm like, I need to be in sales or HR. Okay, I figured that out. And then a maritime recruitment job popped up. And I'm like, all right, that's sales, that's HR, and that's maritime. That's a triple whammy. I'll take that job. And then, as soon as I got into that, that's when everything started to unlock, at that point.
And that was Swift. Is that when you... that was...
There was a company in Florida called Fast Stream at the time. And then they're a British company coming to the U.S. And so I worked for them for about 4 years. And then, just learned everything about maritime, maritime. And it was, it's been a lot of fun ever since, I mean, it's crazy to think like placing 2,000 people, 15 years later through, I mean, I've been able to help a lot of people find work.
Yeah. I've got to isolate something before we get too far away from it, because this is critical. You beatboxed in front of 10,000 pastors. So, how old? Like, what? Like, give me an age. Like, where are you in age around this time of your life when this occurs?
This is I'm about 24 at the time.
24, yeah. Like, what are you, just completely fearless about crowd? Like, you have like, oh yeah, this will be like great. Like, this is right up my alley. Like, how do you, I think if someone asked me to do that, I might feel honored, but I would 100% decline if I was that, especially if I was that age, because I would just be terrified of screwing everything.
Yeah. I'm a good beatboxer. I knew I was good at that. I knew I was good at storytelling. So I told the story of my beatboxing journey, incorporating beatboxing and sound effects through the whole thing. And it was a blast. I mean, it was crazy, being in front of 10,000 pastors. It's an experience that I've never, it's definitely an elevation and kind of a feeling that I've never had since, but it was an incredible experience. But yeah, no, fear of crowds, no, 0.00.
God.
It could be a crowd of 10 or it could be a crowd of 1 million. It doesn't matter to me. Yeah.
It energizes. You thrive on
yeah.
it. That's your...
Yeah. Well, I look at it, a crowd is one, right? So it's one. And I don't look at it as that many people. I just look at, if it's a crowd of 10, that's one crowd. If it's a crowd of 10,000, that's one crowd. It's just one, really. Yeah. The same thing with the kids in the background here. I mean, I don't see 4 kids. I see just a singular unit,
the Matt Fuhrman family unit.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And then, okay, so do you still have the capacity to beatbox today? I mean, is it in there?
Oh yeah. When they asked Will Ferrell, and Anchorman to play the flute, he's like, no, I can't, I won't, I will, like.
Is there like just a small sample, like just a little?
Yeah.
That was unbelievably amazing. I don't even know how you did. Like, you aren't even joking. Like, you are actually you were very good at that. That's well, I'm just going to derail this whole interview, and now we're just focus on your possible beatbox career. That was amazing. Wow. Okay. So fearless in front of crowds. You've developed many talents in your life that we're going to start. I'm just going to cut that audio file and put it at the beginning of this interview to suck people in. All right. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to get my thoughts. That was unbelievable. Swift. You eventually go to Swift. You're still in the staffing or recruiting environment. And how long were you there before you go and say, you go rogue again and say, I'm doing this my way on my own?
I was there for 2 years, and they were venture capital backed. And so they were going through what they call like a cash exercise. And that's when you let people go for the sake of EBITDA to kind of sell the company. And I had a problem with that. It bothered me. And I thought there was a better way to do it. I really did. And so I just, used that kind of window of experience to kind of just go out and do it and just start my own, the proverbial launch. And that was the trigger out of there. I knew we could do it better. I knew we could have a better, environment and a better process on doing things.
So, all right. Because this is, some of our listeners are small business owners. Some of them are medium business owners. Some of them are, they're sales professionals or they're advisors. I mean, it's kind of a diverse group, but I think it's really interesting to the leap, like what causes people, again, huge risk to go start something on your own any time of your life. How old were you when you switched to starting Core Group Resources coming out of Swift? Because that was the moment, right? That was when you started this company. Yeah,
I was 30 years old at the time.
Like, and at this point, family existed, right?
Yeah.
You're married.
Yeah. So, new house, stay-at-home wife, just had third baby. Yeah. And, I did it all backwards. I left at the end of the month, no LLC set up, no website set up, no company name. It was just sudden exit go. And And, you know, you're like, yeah, I'm good at this, but let's see how good we really are. And so having to kind of spool that up in the crucible, you know, out of the home office it was a tall order, you know. It was pretty intense the first 3 or 4 months. You know, I mean, you're 100 phone calls a day and just massive output to get this thing lifted. And we were able to pull, you know, maybe in 3 or 4 months, maybe, I think it was 180 grand through the door just to kind of, you know, get the thing lifted. And then we were able to kind of, you know, I ended up bringing 2 commission-only consultants into my house with a bunch of newborn babies, which is like the worst business decision ever.
What?
I would have just gotten some place to rent somewhere. You know, there was 3 months of just babies on top of me, plus, you know, trying to launch a company, plus hiring 2 people into my house. It was wild, but you know,
Okay.
You know, so, you learn things the wrong way first, you know.
Play me through this. You're sitting down with your wife, and you guys are talking through this, and you're going, you know what, honey, I don't believe in the Swift company. They're doing it all wrong. And in spite of my incredible gifts for beatboxing, we know I could make millions that way. Or I, like, in all honesty, like, I'm equipped as a recruiter. Like, I could probably go work for a competitor and just like that, like, make money again. No. You just had a 3rd baby. I want to really risk everything and start my own thing. How did that conversation go? Was she like, you are insane, what are you thinking? Or was she going, oh yeah, go do it, anything, you're capable, like, what?
Yeah. I think, you know, there's that scene in 300, you know, where Leonidas looks over his shoulder once Xerxes' men had stormed in to kind of try to bribe them, and she kind of nods her head like, go. I mean, my wife's got conviction and strength and will, you know, I mean, and she's like, we're doing this. And, you know, without any fear or she just was like, nodded her head like, it's time to go. And you know, my belief in the company at the time was kind of broken as well. And so it was just, you know, let's do this. So I went in and then said that was it, you know, kind of the next day, no real plan. But yes, I did everything backwards, you know. I mean, you had to build a website, build an LLC, wall selling and building everything and hiring people all at the same time. I mean, it was, you know, usually people have everything planned out and everything nicely to step into and then go. You know, it was not like that in my instance. But my wife is full back support, go, you know. And I'm like, you know, this is going to be a lot of output, you know. I mean,
how much of
we got little kids.
How much of a difference does that make when you feel like your spouse is like highly supportive of what you do versus like terrified of your job? I mean, how much of that role do you feel like played into your success? Like having her really get behind you and knowing that she was supportive.
I mean, when I put my notice in to the company that I left, I mean, I had the CEO at my door. I had the managing director bring me Jameson and flowers, and I had a CFO come in. I mean, it was like full on court press to come back.
Wow.
Like, you know, and if it wasn't for her, I would have gotten lured back in. She was like, no, hold the line. She's like, hold it, you know, and so I, you know, it's probably her initially was really like holding the line, because I would have gotten pulled right back in, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, Churchill said it really well too. And every great man is a greater woman, right? So you got a pretty tough one.
Yeah. So she helped me out a lot, I think. And it's generational, you know. If you know, her father was an entrepreneur, so she grew up listening to what that world was like, you know.
Wow.
I think if you grow up and, you know, if you have a, you know, significant other that's been kind of grown up or groomed into, you know, you need to work for a company and be safe and kind of like, you know, I think risk can be coached by parents, you know. It just depends, you know, and so that has to be worked through. Luckily for my sake, it was, you know, it was her helping me, you know, backing me to get this thing started. So
yeah. When, you know, part of what I was thinking and was we have people that listen to this that they're thinking about embarking on that. We have people that listen to this that are clients of mine that I talk to that still work for a company. They go, oh man, I want to start my own thing. And I think there's so much good in that, right? Like, yeah, sure, own it. Like your creativity, there's so many, and most entrepreneurs that go out on their own never turn around and look back and say, man, I really regret that decision. But I feel like a lot of people underestimate the chaos of the transition. And just like Maritime Academy, it kind of requires that discipline of never quit, no matter what, because it's going to be hellacious, right? I mean, did you experience a little bit of that with the two consultants at home and the kids and I can't.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When you leap, I mean, I always tell people, hey, there's a joy to the W-2, like it's like you get paid bi-weekly, it shows up if you have a job. You can turn it off at home at night. When you start a company, you're on 24/7, 7 days a week, at least. At best case scenario, I think a company startups an 18-month incubation process. Mm-hmm. So you have to have your mind torque ready to be on all the time for 18 months straight to get it lifted and running. You can't, and that takes a lot. You have to push through a lot of self-doubt. There's things about yourself that you didn't even know until you're cast out into that exposure. There's blind spots about yourself that you never really knew. There's blind spots. There's things about me that I had no idea that even existed within my subconscious that, as I'm pushing through things and, taking on and, dealing with people and the hiring and firing of people and how do you deal with all this? And it just, you almost go through a rock tumbler of you're basically purified as a person, honestly. Every part of you is purified. Your mind, your body, your soul, everything is stripped out. Everything that you thought, any kind of insecurity, any kind of that stuff gets fully exposed. You have to face it, deal with it, fix it, and move on. And so if you're not willing to, and I always say there's a joy to a W-2. If you step across the other side, it's like the red pill, blue pill, and Matrix Neo. You can take it, and it's going to be hard. There's going to be moments of greatness. There's going to be moments of really hard times. You enter a relationship with an entity, which people don't really know about, which is the business itself as a living entity that you're in a relationship with that takes emotional time away from you. Away from your family, so you're entering a relationship with an entity. And so you just have to be aware of all that. And if you're okay with that, it can be incredible and it can grow and you can do well. You can go through contractionary markets like we're in right now, where there's business owners that are trapped in their house right now and complete and total, fear of what's around the corner, and having to be at peace in the present, in the day, what's coming today, what's going to be presented, what's around the corner next week, and keeping a cool head through market chaos, So there's a lot to it, but it's incredibly rewarding. And the cool thing is God always provides. All hard work leads to profit. It does. You put the hard work in, it comes out. If you put the hard work in, it comes out. All leads to profit every time. So if you have that kind of faith, in your day-to-day, the money will show up, but you have to step out in faith. You have to step out into that vacuum, get uncomfortable, meet new people, create opportunities, and put deals together. And if you can do that, I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible experience for you, your family, to grow others. But it's hard, and it ebbs and flows like everything else,
Yeah. And hey, by the way, do you have an extra, I just took some awesome notes on what you said that I'm going to come back to in a second. I want to make sure we're probably going to end up going over the hour. Do you have an extra 10 minutes after the hour?
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're getting good. We're hot right now. I want to keep this train going. You said business is a living entity, and I've never heard someone put it that way, but I think that's a really, really good way to look at it. Because we talk about how if you go into business with a partner, even you're getting married, it's like you got wedding vows, and that's part of not just the contractual agreement you form with that person, but also the spiritual agreement, and then also the emotional, like, through better or for worse, right? It's a commitment. And so we have our wedding vows that we say, because that's part of the lifelong commitment you're making to that person. What, maybe you have this written, maybe you don't, maybe this is just in your head, but what are some of the vows or the creed or the principles that you've designed as part of your marriage to your entity, the relationship that you have with your business?
So we run business as a mission.
Okay.
We're missional in helping people in career transition, holding true to the core of what Core Group Resources is, it's a place where people can come for a lantern, through not knowing what's next around the corner from a career perspective, and we can help guide them and open up doors on their behalf. And there's no more powerful of a place when someone's monthly base salary gets vacuumed out from underneath them. Just at that point of need, we're kind of there to help serve. And so the mission of what we do, is kind of, it's all God principles. We're centered on God's will, and we're just, doing our best to help others in career transition. As far as a mission or creed to the entity, there's a temptation for business owners to be the entity, right? Mm-hmm. But putting God at the center of that entity is a completely separate way of doing things, and actually removing your ego from it. Mm. So I would say, there's a temptationary line on if you, as the person who's running a company, are focused on being the entity, then the entity itself will only grow to the size of your own head. It'll actually grow to the size of your ego, and then it'll cap off, and that's it. Mm. When you remove yourself or your ego from the center of the entity and allow God at the center, and you actually grow others into it, then your growth is exponential. There's no limit or end to your growth, because you're not at the center of the business anymore. So honestly, my creed to the entity is to not get in its way.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Wow, that's interesting. They kind of like
to grow it, feed it,
yeah,
pour into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Jeff, when I was interviewing Jeff, we talked about something interesting, and I always like to soundboard this idea, because I think it's a really big principle, and we're talking about it right now. Is that Jeff talked about being a young advisor, and just like you, like being super successful in his late 20s and early 30s, like just crushing it financially, like really wrapped up, like most of us that are in the battle, like you're just really wrapped up in the money, in the you may not say it out loud, but in the status and the accomplishments and the trophies and the victories, and you're just competing, you're focused, and you're in the game, the financial game, right? And there's part of me that sometimes thinks maybe that's just a phase that people have to go through to get some confidence around themselves. Like it's not always a pretty part, but like it's lifting them up to say, okay, at least I'm capable. I know I could do great things, but right now it's about me. But that a lot of people get stuck there, right? A lot of people become, like you said, and they can be wildly successful and get stuck there. Like they can become wildly successful, and it's still always about them. But there's a lack of fulfillment there, and they won't necessarily arrive at their full capacity because they hit this brick wall of what you can do by yourself without asking for other people's help, and without giving up the golden handcuffs of who you are and your identity being your money, your status, and what you can accomplish, right? And I just want, there's so many questions that I have for you and for folks like you that I want to ask, because I want to get perspective. But do you agree? Do you feel like, maybe at some point a young 25-year-old or 24-year-old kind of has to get their teeth kicked in by making some money and just being a little bit egotistical? Like it's just kind of a phase, because you want to test that before you can actually get to a place where you're like, you know what, this isn't everything. I have to experience it to know.
Well, yeah, basically like business goes through cycles, so you have your startup phase, and then you go into what I think it's called the hubris, which is like all ego, everything you touch turns to gold, and it's just all excitement, and it's just, and then you go through like a cycle contraction. And as you start to trick down, through the next cycle round, you have to like really start to find, what is my purpose? If your purpose in the business, your core values are not defined, it's hard to kind of write that, and you can kind of keep filling money in, like, oh, money's going to fix everything. But every business goes through a cycle. Every business comes down off that. And as you go through multiple cycles, if you don't find like that inner purpose of what are you doing to help people? What are you doing to fulfill kind of God's plan in your life, to continue to grow others around you, to continue to grow businesses around you? Then you start to say like, it's just invoice out, cash comes in, invoice out, cash comes in, invoice out, cash comes in. But like that can get boring if you don't find purpose, in it, because you can stack all the invoices and cash you want into the bank account, and you're like, oh yeah, I built this nest egg for retirement. But again, I talk to a lot of retirees that I transitioned out of retirement who are like, I was laying in bed after retirement, couldn't get out of bed, at 9:30, thinking, what am I doing with my life? And I'm folding these guys back in as consultants, into the working world. So it's all about purpose, in your day to day, and what you're actually doing to try to help and accomplish. If God's at the center, or if money's at the center of what you do, it can be there for a little while and that's it. But it's just at some point, you have to dig in a little bit further on what's driving that engine. To keep the system going. And yet making tons of money, flipping companies, growing things like that. Like it helps, but there's always a down cycle to every business. There's always a down cycle. And if you don't know what your purpose is, when you catch that down cycle, that's when you're forced to kind of face it,
So let me toss this out, and I'd love your comments. So, I just bird's eye view, what I get from you is, here's this like just good looking, hard working, like maritime guy, like I'm going to freaking crush it, football. Like, yeah, maybe already you had this epiphany that it's not about me and it's about bigger things. But I kind of imagine this world where Matt's like, I've got a vision. It's me. I'm going to accomplish it. Right. And you're pushing through, you're trying out for the NFL Cup. Like at what point did you go from that stage of life where it's about you and it's like the status and, the things and what you want to accomplish? Not that any of that's bad, but because it sounds like you've had this moment of transition, right? Where it went from these kind of either earthly things or doing it because of this want to this flip where it's now a much deeper purpose. Like what was it like a trauma or a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I got to look for something bigger? When did that occur, and what was that for you?
I think it was, everything we touched turned to gold when I started the business from 2012 to 2015. And then 2015, we went into a contraction, and we really had to grit down and grind and kind of find, who I was, like what was all this? And we came through it. And what I found is we had to pare down, all of a sudden I'm the CFO, I'm the CEO, I'm the general counsel, I'm doing everything, and I'm suddenly the entity, and I'm realizing that this company's not going to grow outside of me. And it was actually Les Stretch. He brought me out to this thing called Adventures of the Heart. And I started peeling layers back and started finding out like, oh my goodness, like, I had some wounds as a kid when my parents lost jobs, things like that were driving me. And, started peeling it back, like, what is all this purpose? And then I got into a group called T12, which, they helped coach me into kind of putting God at the center of the company and just kind of relinquishing yourself from trying to be at the center of everything. And at that point, like, just peace came over, and business continued to get done, and the worry left, and you just focus on what you're good at, like if it's sales, if it's ops, and you focus on what you're good at, you grow others, inside the team to kind of to grow with you, to take load off and pressure off you, and you remove yourself from the center. And then that's when an entity grows, and that's where business gets fun. So when you're at the center of everything and you're trying to be all to everything, you will grow up until the size of your ego, and that's it. It'll cap, period. And so for me, it was a little bit of a downturn, a little bit of a peel back on my heart level, and then some coaching from C12. And with all of that amalgamated, it was like completely business transformational. And when I did that, when I put God at the center of my company, our company doubled last year, to give you an idea.
That's huge. Yeah, love that. Wow. It's a huge testament to the idea that, Jeff even talked about like when you kind of freak out a little bit because you're like, well, shoot, if I actually follow these principles and I'm not in control, like it's terrifying. It's terrifying, right? Because I mean, you start this business,
right.
It's your dang baby. Like, it's like, this is like like the idea of giving up control is so scary. And yet then the moment you don't tie your ego up in it and you go, you know what, it's not even mine. And then, to begin with, and you take a different seat, it doubles. That's just crazy.
It is.
More of a statement
crazy.
Question.
Yeah. It's completely crazy that is the result of that, because the world says you need to control and drive everything, and then as soon as you let go of control, it doubles. You're like, all right, well, I wish I would have learned this sooner.
So this is exactly, maybe that pushes right into my next question here, that this would be a good one to kind of tie things around. 2015, huge tank in the market, right? In the energy market specifically. Was it 2015 or was it 2014?
Yeah.
15, yeah.
15. Yeah.
And so you're, at this point, you are not fully enlightened, I guess you could say, right? In this way of, this isn't mine. So you're trying to control a little bit at the beginning, right? You're feeling the loot. Just how were you coming home at night when this stuff's just crashing around you? Like what's going on in your head in that moment?
Oh, it's, emotionally empty, empathetically empty, cavitation in marriage, a lot of beer and wine, and cigars on the back porch by myself, that kind of stuff. So yeah, you do all the natural first self-medicating, to try to cool the engine coolant, I guess I'd call it. But the whole time you're running on nitrous, and then the engine's overheating all the time, and there's no balance to family, and emotionality's being shredded with your kids, and it's just not a healthy place to be, And so, yeah. Anyways, that's kind of my testament to that. But yeah, you go through all that, and you're like, okay, something's gotta change, and that's funny. We started with Les. Les invited me onto that Adventures of the Heart trip, and it was like there I started to wait a second, I am running on nitrous, I am running on fear of failure, I do want to try to control everything. I think I can save the world, and so yeah, once I kind of identified that, then I'm like, all right, I need to kind of get this thing fixed. So
we're in some just crazy turbulent times. Obviously right now, oil and gas, Jeff called it the double black swan for the energy quarter, because it's not just the Saudi Arabia, like the gas, the oil infusion, but it's also this insane pandemic. And it's like, whoa. I know it's chaotic now. How are you showing up different because of what you've come to understand? And maybe partly because of what you've been through in 2015.
I would say, I am at peace in the present. I know God's in control. This is not a surprise to God. God's not like, whoa, this double black swan is awful. I never saw this coming. Like, it's all planned, right? All this is planned. And so just being at peace in the present, you're just focusing on your day to day. And we all want long vision, right? Like, we're all joyful. We can see 3 to 5 years out and everything's perfect. And then when all of a sudden something like this hits, we're day to day, week to week. And that bothers a lot of people, because now all of a sudden we have to operate in the present, and we have to rely on faith into the future. And so it's almost a faith galvanizer in business owners and things like that. I mean, I was on the call the other day, and I have a lot of empathy for. I'm getting a lot of pour in right now from C12, these companies, on just how to guide this. And I the other day, I'm not kidding. I was literally crying in my closet, feeling the empathy of all the business owners out there that don't have the same pour in that I do. Through this time, you know, and they're alone and they're in their house with their kids, and there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of uncertainty and all of that. And so, you know, anything I can do to transfer, you know, knowledge through this to them would be, you know, just being at peace in the present, you know, focusing on God, not being worried about, you know, the future's already taken care of itself. You just have to focus on the day-to-day, the hour-to-hour, you know, what's in front of you, activities in your day, and then focus on family when you can, you know. And if you have to pivot, you know, if work dries up and you've got to pivot, you know, sometimes we're going to be, there's some guys out there that are going into what we call a season of humility where, you know, they might be running food on DoorDash, right? Or they might be running Instacart, you know, they might be doing Uber, they might be doing odd jobs to fill the trough, but the market's going to return. And so just being at peace, you know, with what's going on and not being afraid to pivot, and just, you know, if the market dries up here, pivot there, you know. And so we're doing a lot of pivoting right now, you know, kind of decentralizing off oil and pivoting into other markets. And so just don't be afraid to pivot, and just know that all hard work leads to profit. It does. It does. Even if you have to pivot, it does. And so we're seeing some miraculous things right now where deals are coming together. I had some client this week I've been chasing for years. She's like, "Hey, can I sign you a check now?" I'm like, "This week, really? Like in the throes of chaos?"
Yeah, we have a saying. I mean, it's just so true. You always get paid for the effort of work you put in. Sometimes now, often later, but always eventually, right? And I think that's right. Be true. Sometimes eventually can feel a long ways away, but even the experiences you had going through Maritime that were part of the solidification of never quitting when it gets tough, you're getting paid for now, right? In a lot of ways. So, yeah, I love that way of thinking. Any routines that you've formed that serve you really well right now, like whether that's a morning routine or you know, how important you know, just physical health is to you, and a routine that you have there that you want to share with, you know, with others?
Yeah, you know, if you can get up early, I try to do it sometimes, you know, with this being stuck in the house thing, I haven't, you know, but, you know, if you can spend some time, you know, to yourself in the morning, a lot of the times, like I'll download like the Bible app, and if there's something on my mind, like if I have to let somebody go, I'll type in the word pruning, you know, and see what kind of verses pop up about having to let people go, and just kind of, you know, just getting some insight outside of your own mind, you know, and kind of allowing God to speak into you on a day-to-day basis. It really can be transformative on your decision-making, you know, because if you think about your mind's like the rudder of a ship. And if you're slightly off by 1 degree on your decision-making, you can end up off course like a couple hundred nautical miles, you know? And so it's recentering your rudder every morning is super important in my daily walk. Now, sometimes, you know, in crazy times like this, where I'm in houses and the kids are on top of each other, it's, you know, it's been spotty this week, you know. Sure. But, you know, and then fitness, I would put as I mean, almost like a, you know, you've got your mind, you know, your body, your spirit, you know, you feed your spirit through quiet time. Your body, you've got to keep, you know, at least working out minimum 4 times a week, you know, walking, lifting, something. Because if you're not investing in that and you get caught up in like this crazy market and you're grinding this out and then sacrificing your health in the process, it's like I call it the wine queso vortex. You know, you're in so much stress and you pump a bunch of wine in to cool it off and go get some queso, you know, and it's just, you're just in this vortex, and before you know it, your waistline's expanding and you're like, what's happening to me? You know, you have to break this loop, you know?
I'm going to get a t-shirt made for you. Yeah. Love that. Okay. Quiet time 4x a week. 4 times a week, some kind of activity, something that gets you moving. And then what was there a third one?
That's it. Just at least minimum four workouts a week, and then trying to do quiet time every morning if you can, or whenever you can. And then, I like the Bible app, and keyword searching, like, man, something's on my heart. I got to make a big decision today. What does it say about, terminating a client, or letting things go? I'll type in keywords and actually start searching verses that fit that need, and then kind of dig in and see, okay, what's the context of this? And then that helps me make better decisions in the day to day.
Yeah, no, I love that. One thing I really appreciate about you is that, when around that time of 2015, 2016, when the crash happened, is that, and it peeled back some layers of the onions. That's also where I feel like you really took on that student of the game mentality. And I mean, you did. I mean, C12 is a great example of reaching out and asking for help. You did, went through our coaching program, but I feel like you went through rapid learning. And even before that, I feel like you were a good student of reading books and educating. But how has being a student of the game been, how has that played a role in your life in general?
I think, I fell behind the curve a little bit when we had our 4th baby and went through the downturn, didn't read as much and kind of fell behind, and the market's changing so fast and thought patterns are changing so quick that, like, if you stop kind of investing in yourself and you're like, you know what, I think I'm done learning at this point, you seal off. You actually seal off your growth. Someone's going to invent around you on doing something slightly better. And so my encouragement is I wake up every day thinking, like, yeah, I've learned a lot, but at no point I'm always thinking someone's about to out-invent me, or someone's going to try to, take an angle. And so it's just, I'm always continuously pouring in and trying to learn as much as I can just to stay ahead of the market, of where things are headed. And just never turning that switch off. I think it's when you turn that switch off is when you go into what we call slack mode, and then you go, and then the system starts to kind of, the company can kind of come out from underneath you. So in order to water a company, you actually have to water yourself. It's like a pour down. So, God waters me. I water myself through learning, then I can rotate and then water the company, and it's a constant watering. It's like a watering of plants. And if you're not doing it, the plants will start to wilt, they'll dry, they'll contract, they won't grow. And so you just got to keep pouring water into yourself so that you can then outpour water into others.
Oh, that's so big. Yeah, we even say, put your oxygen mask on first before helping the other person on the plane, right? Yeah, I love, it's so true. So yeah, man, I appreciate the time a ton today. I think I was just thinking as we were talking, sometimes my back of my mind is, I'm like, okay, what are the Matt Fuhrman principles distilled? And some of them we talked about, some of them we didn't. But I think from just knowing you and then these conversations, I feel like having a vision is obviously, I was critical for the Maritime Academy, having that house, and but to me that just symbolized vision. And you arrived there. You've got a handful of kids, right? That's 4. You've got a great home, like you got exactly what you wanted there. But since then, even I feel like what continues to drive you is you've expanded that vision, and it's become, even more of like a, legacy and what you want to leave behind, and even bigger picture, right? And so vision's been such a driving agent for you as a principal. So you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that was one that I captured.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's you just hold the vision true.
Yeah, vision it was big for you. Vision, I feel like you have and just a tremendous work ethic. If it doesn't work harder to a degree, but balance that with vision and letting go of what you can't control. I think has been the magic formula for you. And then man, just having a great sense of humor. I mean, people saw a little bit of that today, but like you are. I remember, I can't even remember why the heck you did that. We had that dang katana sword like pulled out and that picture. And I think I sat in front of my computer and was so unproductive that evening, making like 12 different memes until I finally got one that I loved. And I was just so classic. But you bring like fun and energy to a company. And I feel like there's so many people that miss that because either they got a cool card they can't tear up or whatever. But you are just ridiculous in a good way, and it makes everybody around you actually have a good laugh and enjoy life better. So such a good operating principle to be and live off of. And then just, yeah, being a student and a willingness to learn. I mean, those are the pieces that I at least captured today. I know there's other ones that you probably operate on, but I appreciate being able to get some good examples of all that. So thanks for being vulnerable and sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for having me. I think this is awesome that you're doing this. And I'd say that, this is, I've only done a couple interviews, so this is pretty cool. I think you've even got the bug in me, like maybe I need to start shedding more. It's you hold this vision and you get there and you're like, all right, now I need to pour into others. I want everyone to get to their vision. And it's like you just hold that vision and then coaching up. Coaching everyone up, and if everyone's winning and coached up, I'm at the point where I'm like you're never there, but I'm in complete contentment of what God has done with my life, and now I want to help others get there. I really do. And get people elevated and lifted, and launched.
Yeah.
So this helps. Yeah.
100%. Well, thanks this is what we'll distribute. And as soon as I know when the episode airs, like I'll lock you into that too, so you can, share it as needed. And I just think that the stories are great. The principles are great. It's not even just highlighting you, it's highlighting what you're about in service to others, because people can learn from the shortfalls, the mistakes, but also the great decisions that you've made and what you've learned along the way. So there's a good body of stuff in this. So thanks for sharing.
Awesome.
Any resources that you want to point folks to? So, core group resources, your website, we'll have that in your show notes. And just anything else, like anything that you think is a good resource for folks, tools, at this time that you want to share. I know I didn't talk to you about that before, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a forum to provide some direction for folks. And also, last thing, let me just ask this, because then it's not, this is just in service of others. Like I said maritime and energy, but what are some of the other industries that you've successfully served and are working with now?
Yeah, so we do recruitment we do executive search, contract placement, and consulting for maritime, offshore wind, subsea engineering, offshore drilling, the FPSO marketplace, industrial, and we cover all disciplines, so IT, accounting and finance, operations, engineering, you name it. I mean, the consultants we've got are all like career, anywhere between 5 to 30 years of experience. So there's not a whole lot we can't get our head wrapped around to execute a search on. So we're kind of where senior consultants come to establish their practice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. Cool. Great. Well, if there's anything else that you want me to include in the show notes, shoot it over to me. And the last thing, any books that you're reading right now or that you've read recently that you feel like, man, this is timely and good for folks to pick up?
Sacred Pace by Terry Looper.
Okay. Just a quick nugget on that, like the one thing that you feel like struck you from there that
it teaches you how to slow down and grow your business at the same time.
Got it. So good. Awesome. So good. Well, Matt, whether you're, doing emergency calls, directing people on how to get off ships, or it's Hurricane Harvey and you're saving lives by telecommunicating, emergency responders to pick people up from their house. I mean, literally, I've just seen you go into action in times of crisis to help a ton of people. I know you got heart of gold. So whatever you got to get back to, man, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk and share your message. So appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, you too, man. Thank you so much.